Hey you guys, it's Charmaine from Sugar Free Self Care. Welcome to another episode of How to Stop Craving, my super special podcast for everybody who's struggling with sugar cravings or any kind of food craving. So today I'm gonna talk to you about this concept that's really popular in the keto world, the carnivore world, any kind of real food way of eating. And it's this concept of eat when you're hungry and stop eating when you're full. And this was first introduced to me by Dr. Jason Fung, the writer of the Obesity Code. And it sounds simple enough, right? Like, oh yeah, eat when you're hungry, and then when you're full, just stop eating. But it's actually a lot more complicated and a lot more challenging than you think. Because like we covered in the last episode, which you could check out, episode number 2 in the How to Stop Craving podcast, there's actually 3 different kinds of hunger. So first, you have to actually know what kind of hunger are you feeling. Just to recap, is it sugar withdrawal hunger? Is it emotional hunger? Or is it true physical hunger? Then the next thing you have to know is, okay, am I actually hungry, like physically? Does my body need more fuel at this time? So what I found when I coach my clients and what I've discovered in myself too, is that most people eat to numb out an emotion. Whether it's boredom, anxiety, or stress, a lot of people use food to avoid feeling a certain way. And when this is the case, food can even numb out that sensation of hunger. So when you ask people, are you hungry? Are you full? It's actually quite challenging for a lot of people. So I learned a tool called the hunger scale, which I use up to this day. I've used it every day to help me to see if I'm actually in need of food, if I actually need fuel right now. And this tool will help you just gain that awareness of your mind-body connection and just help you gain that relationship with your body so that you're not eating without a purpose. That's a big thing for me. Like I tell my clients all the time, you gotta eat only when you're hungry, and you gotta learn that skill of listening to your body. And you only give your body food when your body is telling you that it needs the food. But like I said, a lot of us eat to numb out emotions, so that also numbs out our ability to know when we're hungry. So what is the hunger scale? How do you listen to your body in an actual, like, applicable, tangible way? Well, that's what I use the hunger scale for. So basically the hunger scale is a tool that can quantify hunger. And there's a way that you can measure your hunger so you eat only when you physically need food and you stop eating when you're full. So the way I like to describe it is like in the hospital when I give my patients their pain medications. I ask them, are you feeling any pain on a scale of 0 to 10? And they tell me, yeah, I have 3 to 4, not that big of a deal. Or maybe they're in excruciating pain and they go like, yeah, it's like a 10, I have so much pain. So that's a great way to quantify if you actually need medication or not, right? So the hunger scale is the same thing. It's a subjective measure of if you need food and if you don't. So the way it works is that instead of 0 to 10, there's a scale of -10 to +10. On a linear scale, -10 and +10, and there's a 0 in the middle. Okay, so the negative side is the hungry side. That is when your body needs food, okay? And then the positive side is the full side. That's when you're getting more food and you start getting more and more full. So -10 is the end of the hunger spectrum, right? Like -10 is like you're starving. Maybe you're coming up on the end of a 3-day, 4-day fast. Maybe you're at the end of a 16-hour fast, or whatever that like hunger of, like the most hungry feeling you've ever felt in your life, that would be at a -10. You haven't eaten for days. And then +10 on the other hand would be like, which most of us I think can really easily point out, is you've had Thanksgiving dinner, then you had another Thanksgiving dinner, and then you had beer on top of that, and then you had desserts, and you are so freaking stuffed, your stomach hurts and all that. So those are the 2 extremes you have to know on the scale. -10 and +10. Now, when do you actually eat? So I tell my clients all the time to pinpoint, like to really gauge where they are at a -4, because -4 is where I recommend for people, especially in the beginning, to start out to figure out if they actually need food or not. So start eating at a -4 on your scale and then stop eating at a +4. Now you might be like, Charmaine, what does that feel like? What's a -4? Well, I can't really quite answer that for you because your hunger scale, first of all, is subjective to you. And the other thing that I want to say is your hunger scale can change depending on the kind of food you eat. If you are eating a lot of foods with carbs and sugars, your hunger may be more frequent. So your hunger scale will look different than someone who's fat adapted and is burning fat for fuel, and they are not hungry very often. Okay, so you gotta change your scale. You have to adapt it. I recommend calibrating it every 2 weeks if you're changing up how you eat. But basically, you know, just know that it's subjective to you. Okay, so at a -4, the way I like to describe it is basically that, you know, you're feeling hungry, you get this sense that you need food. The way it feels physically for me, but I'm fat adapted, but it just feels like for me, like you could feel like as if your stomach's a little empty. You feel like a little bit of grumbling in your stomach, not that loud grumbling sensation, but a little bit of a hunger pang, a little nudge in your stomach. Maybe you might feel a little sweaty. Maybe you might feel a little anxious, okay? Whatever that feels like for you. Now that's your signal. That's your green light. That's when you should probably eat something. Now, this is where the tricky part comes in. A lot of people don't know when they're actually full. They tend to overeat because, first of all, they might be eating too fast. Secondly, they might be eating too frequently, so they don't really know what fullness looks like for them. So this is where I really encourage you. If you want to not overeat, you gotta be mindful and you got to be intentional when you eat. So eat slowly and then just notice when you think you're at a +4. Ask yourself that right now. What would a +4 look like for you? Can you imagine a time where you ate a meal where you weren't stuffed, but you knew that you didn't need any more food? Take a moment to write that down or just jot that down really quick mentally, what that looks like for you. That is where you stop. Okay, again, you eat at a -4, you stop at a +4. And a 0, I want you to be mindful. What does a 0 look like for you? You're not hungry, you're not full. Whatever that looks like for you, you describe that. It is subjective and it is personal to you. This is a great way to portion out your meals. I always tell people my basics for eating, for planning your meals, which I'll talk to you about in the next video, is how to plan your meals is that you want to eat 2 to 3 meals a day. You want to eat proteins, veggies, and fats, and you want to eat at a -4 and stop eating at a +4 in every meal. All right, so that's a great place to start with your planning. That's a great way to start being mindful of your hunger signals, and it's a great way to quantify your hunger so you're not kind of vague with when you're hungry and when you're full. So practice this. I encourage you to do this before and after every single meal. Get to know how much food you actually need each meal. And who knows, you might be eating more than you need, or you might actually need to eat less than you've been eating. So practice this. Let me know in the comments how it goes for you. And please subscribe to my videos so you check out my future videos on how to stop craving so you can start finally getting freedom from sugar, carbs, and flour. All right, you guys, I'll see you in the next video, and I'll talk about how to plan your meals.